I'm Jason, and this is Jeff, and we're from the world famous Getaway RV and Van-Upfitting, and we are here to go over the installation of a Go Power Inverter and two 170 watt panels. All right, thank you. Follow us. So we've just unpackaged our solar panel kits, and we're just going to go through the items that are in the kits. So Jeff, what do we got here?
So in our expansion kit, it will come with your instruction manual, your brackets, and your Y-connects to connect the two panels together. In your main 170 kit, it will give you your 30 amp monitor with your user manual, the wiring that's needed, inline fuse to your battery, the mounting brackets, and of course all your wiring.
Perfect. So we are in a shop environment, so you'll have to excuse the background noise, but what we have here is the top of our van roof, and what you can see here is aluminum mounting plates that we custom manufactured and sent out for powder coating. And I'm just going to get a little closer here, and then we can see all of the components that we're going to be using.
Okay, so we have our entry plate, our Go Power entry plate, ready to go. We got sealant on the back side. We have our entry hole coming through the roof with our grommet. So now we're going to go ahead and actually feed our negative and positive power wires through the entry plate and into the unit.
Okay, so we have our entry plates, and we left a little bit of wire on one side just till we figure out how much length we're actually going to need. And the other side we are going to feed through the roof. Right. So we have our entry plate in place with the putty underneath, and we are going to fasten it down to the roof. So once we have fastened it down on all corners, as well as having a putty sealant underneath, we're also going to seal it on top as well. We have never had a solar panel leak on an RV or a van that we've installed. Although you do need to make sure that you maintain your seals on it. It's not something that we've ever had an issue with our world famous Getaway RV employees. Okay, so now is the sealant for the top, and this product is called Dicor, and this Dicor can be used on metal, it can also be used on fiberglass, and it can be used on rubber as well. So this sealant is a self-leveling product, which means once it's applied, it will level itself out. So once it's had a chance to level out, you can go back to it and inspect it just to make sure there is no voids in the sealant. Really good product. We've been working with this product for many, many years and are very happy with it. So we'll get that sealant around the entire perimeter of the entry plates, and then from there we'll show you what we do inside. Just wanted to show you a close-up of the entry plate with the sealant around it. The sealant is fresh. As I said to you before, it is a self-leveling product, so once it's all set and dried up, we will inspect it again just to make sure there's no voids in it, but right now it looks absolutely beautiful. Okay, so we're inside the van, and you can see where the wires ran through the roof. So what we are going to do now is we are going to run them through the post of the van. All of the work we do here is all custom as far as the vans, and we want to make it look as professional as possible. And we pride ourselves on our finish work. We never ever at the end of the day want anybody to say, hey, where did you get that done? That looks terrible. So all of our work is seamless, and as I said, we want to make sure it's a good professional installation that everybody can be proud of, especially the customer. So we've ran the wires down the posts, and they are now coming out on the lower section. And Jeff has got the end of the wires here on the voltage regulator. So you're not going to see the rest of this installation until we've got the cabinets in, because we want to have everything in place. But normally what would happen is the wires would go to the back of the voltage regulator, and then from the back of the voltage regulator it's then going to go to our batteries. So we will go through that when we get our cabinets all built and we're set to go there, and we will show you our seamless installation. So what we have here is the underside of a 170 watt Go Power solar panel, and Jeff is installing the Z brackets on here. I'm going to pass one over to him right now. So what the Z brackets are they are what attaches to the solar panel and what allows it to attach to the roof of a trailer or fifth wheel. So very simple. And just like that. So we've got all 4 brackets on there. And then what we would do from there is we would take that panel up onto the roof, we would flip it over, and then this part of the Z bracket right here is what's actually going to attach the solar panel to the roof. Now, as I say that, I'm going to back up. We're doing a solar panel install on a van conversion. In our particular case here, we are not going to be using the Z brackets, and I'll show you and I will explain why in a moment. Okay, so we're bringing the first solar panel onto the roof. Okay, and that's going to sit on our custom aluminum rack. So we've got the solar panel on top of our custom rack, and you can see the bracket that we have there. That's a custom bracket that we built just to keep the height as low as possible on the solar panel on the rack. So we're going to now secure that in place. And then we're going to do the same at the back. Here comes the second panel. So we're just going to carefully place it down on top of the first right now, just to kind of get it out of our way.
Okay, so we're just getting ready to terminate the connections to join the 2 panels together. So they give you an extension kit of the Y connectors. So it's really easy to do. So on each panel has a power or a positive or negative. So you're going to take the negative from each panel, and just click them together, and then over to your main negative lead that's going through into your unit. And then we're going to do the same on the positive. Okay, once those are connected, then you're ready to install the second panel down over top. Now we're going to fasten the second panel down into place.
We've secured our solar panels on the outer edges, and on the inside we've got some aluminum plates that we are going to then fasten to the side of the solar panels in the center to hold them in place in the middle. So we'll be doing that momentarily here. What we have here is the bracket that I was telling you about, and that bracket is adjoining the two panels together. We've used an aluminum plate and we've bolted right through from one side to the other. And we're doing that at the rear of the solar panel and also at the front of the solar panels as well. So Jeff, what do we have here?
Okay, Jay, we're just getting ready to install our inverter with our wiring. Here's our wiring kit. It will come with your positive and negative cables going from your inverter to your batteries, along with a 300 amp fuse that will go in line. The nice thing about the Go Power wiring kits is that they're numbered to go with the size of the inverter that you're going to use. So then there's no guessing if your wiring is heavy enough to match the power coming out of your inverter. Also we have is their monitor that will wire in with the inverter to control it. So you can set your different charge rates, charge profiles, and also turn the inverter on and off.
Okay, and then over here we have our Go Power inverter, which is a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. This is the IC model, and the advantage to the IC model is it has a built-in transfer switch, and it's also got a built-in 100 amp battery charger. So we're going to be mounting the inverter to the board that you see on the wall, and what we've done is we've reinforced that area to allow the inverter to be installed there. We have our Go Power AGM batteries, which are 224 amp hours. They're 6-volt batteries, so they're actually wired in series to maintain a 12-volt system. And then we've got a battery box that we've made here and secured. And what we have here is the original Go Power 30 amp controller. In this particular case, we're actually going to upgrade that to the 40 amp MPPT solar controller. So Jeff, maybe tell me just in brief, just a little bit about the advantage of using this controller over the one that comes with the kit.
Hey Jay, this controller is a 40 amp controller. It can be used standalone. You also can pair it up with the wall mount monitor. The controller is 30% more efficient. It is more efficient of taking the power from your solar array to the controller to your batteries. It also can be ran paralleled with another controller. So if say your solar array is going to exceed the voltage, you can parallel another controller with it.
All right, let's get this stuff installed. Our battery box is actually secured to the floor, and we're just going to put them in place here. you can actually see we've made a really nice tight fit there, so nothing is going to move around when the vehicle is in motion. Okay, time to get the inverter in place. So we've already got the mounting screws started on the wall.
Okay, so now I'm just going to go underneath and mount our lower mounts.
Next is the MPPT controller that we're mounting right next to the inverter. So although looks aren't everything, when we do an installation, we like to make it look just absolutely mint here. So I think so far we've got everything nice and uniformed, and you know, the goal is at the end of the day we've got a very functional product, but also something that the owner can be proud of once it's all done and complete. Okay, so we've got our inverter. And we're just going to take the cover plate off. We've already got the screws undone for it. And then inside, it's a little difficult to see, but we have our AC inputs and our AC outputs. So we're going to start by feeding our shore power. So this is the line from the shore power. So Jeff, can you just tell us what you've got here?
Okay, so coming in from our shore power, we have our ground to the ground block. Then we have our neutral, and then we have our power, our common.
Okay, and what do you have over here? So you got black and the white there. What do you got there?
Okay, so this is going to be our out going to our converter. Again, it's onto the ground, and then to our neutral, and then power.
Okay, so just to summarize, we've got power going in from the shore power, and then over here we've got power going out. And right now this line is not connected here, so we'll get to that point very shortly.
Get a shot of that, of just tightening.
Yep.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Alright, so we've got our cable locks tightened up onto our cables. I'm just going to wrap this up until we're ready to install it into our converter. And then next we're going to start with our cables coming down and work our way to our batteries.
So what we've got here is our 300 amp fuse, and we're just going to hook up the positive sides. And onto the positive post on the inverter. And the same thing on the negative, so just hooking our negative wire up to the inverter. So as you can see here, positive is connected to the fuse, and the negative is going to go back to the batteries. So the battery connection on the positive side, before it goes to the battery, is going to be connected up to the fuse. We've got our two 6-volt batteries here, and the way they're wired is they're actually wired in series. So to make a 12-volt system out of two 6-volt batteries, what we need to do is first hook up the positive and the negative together. We're now going to hook up our positive lead. So from the fuse, we're just following the wire back there, and we've made a hole in the battery box that we've made. And we're just going to pull it through. We've got our negative lead coming from the inverter, and we're just going to again put that through the battery box. In addition to hooking up our negative post on the battery, we're also going to hook up our battery temperature sensor. And what that does is that prevents the batteries from overcharging in warmer weather, and it also prevents them from undercharging in cooler weather. We also have our chassis ground, which is going to be, if we follow that lead back, we're going to hook that up to here. So that's a ground that we've made on the van, and there is going to be another ground that's going to be hooked up to this post coming from the inverter. So you can just see that line right there. So we're going to start with our battery temperature sensor, and we're going to plug that right into the inverter itself, and it is marked on there, battery temperature. So we'll get that plugged in, and then we'll come back over to the battery and we'll get the negative hooked up. We'll get the chassis ground hooked up and the battery temperature sensor. Just like that. Now we're going to hook up our chassis ground and the ground from the inverter. So things look a little bit different than before. We've actually got our panel in, which is just kind of the face, which is allowing us to box all of our components in. So here we've got our electrical distribution box, and inside we have our power inverter, and as I promised you before, we are going to show you how that connects to the power distribution. So we have our outputs coming out of the inverter, And here is our end, and that is going to be fed through. So we're feeding that through from the back. And this is where we have our breaker panel and our fuses. So Jeff, just because your hands were in the way there a little bit, can you just explain what you've just done?
Okay, so we've got our ground coming into our ground bar, neutral to the neutral bar, and then your main power going into your 30 amp breaker for your main power.
All right, perfect. So what Jeff has in his hands is the remote for the inverter as well as the communication cable. So we're going to show you how to hook that up. We've already got the hole cut for the remote there, so here we go.
Way over to this way.
Okay, so here on the inverter it actually says remote, and we're going to plug our communication cable in. There's a lot of cable comes with the kit, so any excess you just kind of have to tuck it out of the way. It's kind of meant for multi-applications, so in many cases it runs quite a distance. So really simple, it's just almost like a telephone end on each side. And there it is in place. So theoretically we should be able to power this on, and there we go. It is actually working. So I'm not going to talk about this too much more right at this point. We're going to get everything else hooked up, and then we will go through the operation of the solar panel and the inverter with you. Now that we have our inverter hooked up, we are going to move back over to the solar. So back to our 40 amp MPPT solar controller. These two wires here, we have our positive and our negative, and this is actually from the solar panel itself. So this is what we ran down the wall paneling, and we're going to hook that up to the solar controller. So we're just following our positive line back from the solar controller, and we are going to hook that up to our 40 amp auto reset breaker. So the breaker is in place of a fuse. Okay, so we've got our power coming from the controller to the breaker, and then the other side of the breaker, positive line's been connected, and then we're going to connect that to the positive lug on the inside here. And the reason we've put that on is just simply we're very busy in the battery box area here, and we're running out of space on the battery lugs. Okay, now we're going to follow our negative leads from the controller through into the battery compartments, and then we're going to hook that up to the negative lug. Alright, so what Jeff has in his hand now is the communication cable from the 40 amp MPPT solar controller that is going to be going to the digital readout inside. So we'll show you how to get that hooked up. Again, very simple. We've already got our hole cut. Here's our communication cable. Again, lots of length for many different applications. There's a port on top of the controller, so we've got that in port A. It doesn't matter whether it goes in port A or port B. And then we're just simply feeding the wire. Again, once we're all done, we'll tuck away that excess wire. And we'll hook that up to the back of the controller. Now, Jeff, that only goes in one way, or there's two connections on the back?
Yeah, one port is smaller than the other.
Okay.
So it will only fit in one spot.
Perfect. As soon as we plugged the controller into the communication cable, it lit up. It's showing our batteries at 12.9 volts. And it was actually set for AGM, which is perfect because we're using AGM batteries. There's 0 amps going into the batteries right now because we're indoors. So we'll have a part 2 of this video once we get the van outside. We can go through that. Now you notice the LED display light went out. It went into a sleep mode. So it's nice. There's nothing bright inside of the van that's going to annoy you or distract you. Alright, so we are done the actual physical install of the solar panel and the inverter. So hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for part 2 once we get the van outside, and we'll show you the actual operation of everything.
Hey, we'll see you on video too.
Thanks, guys.